and welcome to another episode of the Contractor's Corner podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Missbrenner. I'm the managing editor at Solar Power World magazine. I hope all of our northern listeners in areas like me in Ohio are starting to enjoy our return to warm weather. I hope everyone's enjoying spring wherever you are. I know it's a hard time in the world right now with the war in Ukraine, and I know that we are really feeling it here in the United States with our energy situation and very high prices at the pump. And of course, renewables have been a big part of this conversation. It's clear that if we had more renewable homegrown energy, we would not be in such dire straits right now. In a March 11th speech on this subject, President Biden said, "This crisis is a stark reminder to protect our economy over the long term. We need to become energy independent and accelerate the transition to clean energy." So once again, we're getting another signal from the federal government that renewables and clean energy are very important, especially in light of current events. But at the same time, we're seeing issues stateside where solar is being discouraged in markets where it's not flourishing yet. So in Florida, net metering is about to be gutted, and it does seem like DeSantis is expected to sign this bill. As of recording on March 15th, he has not yet, but I know the industry is bracing for that. We are still waiting on a decision in California as well with their net metering 3.0 case. So again, it is March 15th and things change very quickly. But we will be covering that whenever it does happen. So just another reminder that even though the federal level is saying we need more renewables, there's so many other factors at play for if solar is allowed to grow at the speed that it needs to. In our corner of the world at Solar Power World, we just finished up our March issue, which is our special residential install tips issue. We hope you enjoy this issue of the magazine, both online and in print. If you're not subscribed to the print edition and you want to get it, it is free. You just need to go to our website, solarpowerworldonline.com, and subscribe. I talked to Scott Buckley. He's the president of Green Lantern Solar based in Vermont, but they're installing all over the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic and quickly expanding. Scott told me about Green Lantern's pioneering work doing dual use projects with farmland and solar, as well as doing really neat brownfield work, including a former weapons base that now has solar. Scott also talks about his hope for a more sustainable solar industry as far as recycling goes. So get ready for a great conversation with Scott. Thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. I'm Kelsey Missbrenner, managing editor of Solar Power World. I am here with Scott Buckley. He is the new president of Green Lantern Solar. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Kelsey. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, Scott. So let's start by getting to know you a little better. How did you personally get into the solar industry?
Yeah, so it started as a need to help my dad. So my dad was getting older in age, and he owned a mine in West Virginia, where I'm from, which is making a lot of national headlines these days. So he needed a way to have some income on the mine property now that all the resources had been, depleted over the years. And so we started looking around and thought, well, there's power that comes into the mine, 3-phase power. It's really flat because it was a strip mine, right? Yeah, you're like, you're a solar guy, your dad is, yes. One of the same. So it was really well sited for solar. So we thought that would be the highest and best use for the land. And this has been, oh my goodness, a while ago, I'll say, and without revealing my age. So we started to go forward with it, and then realized, oh my goodness, there's, an inordinate fee to pay for a PGM interconnection. And so we're able to hook up with a developer at that time. And I had the fortune of going to grad school and actually took a class in sustainable finance and investing. It's like, man, this stuff is, it's really fascinating. Like there's a tangible asset that we build that helps employees, the environment, because I'd been working in brownfield cleanup and real estate and business before, and wanted to use those skills and translate it into solar and what we're doing now. So it all started with helping my dad.
That is really neat. And to come from a fossil fuel background and transition, yours is the story of the future, really.
Writ large, sort of the opportunity for West Virginia. And there's a lot of people doing some great work down there. Dan Conant with Solar Haulers, really boots on the ground, pushing things forward. And the legislature in West Virginia is taking action on that. And I've heard recently that Senator Manchin, who I actually worked for in West Virginia, is taking some great strides and open to new possibilities for Build Back Better and bills that even the United Mine Workers in West Virginia support the bill.
So how did you get involved with Green Mountain Solar?
Found this little school that I'd never heard of called Middlebury in Vermont. And went there. I was like, oh no, I've asked my parents to spend all this money on private school, and here I am. The only place I can get into is Middlebury. Remember, I'm from West Virginia. I'd never heard of the place. I'm like, this is well done, bud. But that panned out, thankfully. Didn't play hockey there because they won the national championship every year I was there. So I probably could have been the water boy at best. But great place, loved it. Stayed around Vermont. And actually I came down to Boston for grad school. And after that class, hooked up with the folks at Green Lantern through a recruiter, actually. And what's that been? Almost 5 years ago now.
What has been the most rewarding moment of your solar career so far?
I think the rewarding moment is it's a series of moments strung together. The first sort of dinger or moment is knowing that the hard work, the risk, the the development intensity from our group has paid off, and a public institution has recognized the good that these projects will deliver. And so it's a really great feeling around the office. I use office in air quotes. We've actually been remote the entire time. So we don't have a fixed physical central office. But that feeling of, hey, we get another chance to deliver a project to folks. And then it happens again on the end when the project goes online. And we know that, our counterparties, the off-takers, the scholarships in the schools that we sponsor, all those things are now going to happen for the community. And that's very impactful for me. It's very different than I think other prior sort of businesses. The cleanup period and brownfield remediation is it's years and years long. While great, it's just there's more of an immediacy here, and those moments make a difference.
How would you say Green Lantern stands out from other contractors?
Awesome name. I think the things really that make us unique in this space. One is full vertical integration. We've seen a thing or three really. We understand looking at a project from a developer standpoint. We do our own internal financing, bring sponsor capital, layer on debt, TE, so we understand finance. We understand what it means when you have to build a project, and now there's a international module supply shortage, and how do we complete these projects for our investors, for our counterparties, for the off takers, for people who need this clean power to go on the grid. We've done so many projects that with the same team, that the continuity, the institutional knowledge, managing down the experience curve, we've done that from the full stack. And I think an important part of that too is the broad base of experience and seasoned professionals on the team. So we have folks who have a background in real estate, business, the U.S. military. We hire a lot of veterans, people who've run, entire platoons in the military. I don't, whatever the number is, it's a lot of people in the military. I apologize and thank you for the military for having done that. But so folks that can bring a different lens onto the conversation, and seasoned professionals that say, well, hey, wait a second, what if we do it this way? That's really what makes us additionally sort of unique. And then layered on top of that, we're a pioneer. We did Luke and Bill did some of the very first structured tax equity finance deals in the United States, and started the North, certainly Vermont, likely Northeast, first commercially financeable PPA, among the first. And so, our history actually started out as a financial consulting firm. Green Lantern was able to figure out a mechanism to couple finance with nonprofits and folks who couldn't, use that.
What has been the most unique project your company has completed?
So there are three that come to mind. The first is going to be Green Mountain Power, the largest electric utility in Vermont, hired us to do a microgrid in Essex, Vermont for them. And so it's a really interesting project and GMP, Green Mountain Power, has been working to sort of make the grid more resilient and robust in that area, which is just outside Burlington. And so we did I think it's about a 6.7 meg array, coupled with a battery, obviously for sort of an anti-islanding effect in the local. Or I guess in this case, it would be an islanding effect in case the primary grid goes down. So it was a really neat project that we built in Essex for Green Mountain Power. Another project, sort of back to that pioneer theme, quite some time ago, we did an array in Benson, Vermont, and I know the buzzword floats around now of agrovoltaics, but this is truly it's an elevated array, standard fixed tilt, but the cows come and get shade under the array, so it reduces their heat stress. There's no lost ground because the animals still use the area, and it's before they go into the barn. So it really works well, and gives a stream of income to the farmer to hedge against milk price volatility. So he really enjoyed that. And the third one is a missile base. And so in Alburg, Vermont, we did a project on a former ICBM missile base. The ones that you imagine with like the Quonset huts and like the blaring alarms, and the missiles are going to shoot across over to Europe and Asia during, I think it was during the Cold War as such, but we built our array, again, fixed tilt, right over the top of that infrastructure. And so what used to be used to shoot missiles is now used to make solar power. So that's a really intriguing array.
It's a nice little homegrown Vermont peace and love story. I like that.
It is, right? It's like talk about like beneficial reuse or dual use. It's make solar, not missiles.
So what is preventing you from installing more projects?
I spoke with the CEO of a solar panel manufacturer who has plenty of product and it's ready to go, for our arrays, but they have no shipping containers. And this has been talked about, but I think one of the solves is time. And so there's a disconnect between the amount of capital flowing in, because there's an intense amount of capital pouring into our industry, increased pressure from environmental sustainability goals, active investors, or in some cases, activist investors even, that the tax equity side is secured lower prices on debt, even though now we're likely going to see the Fed is signaling a compensatory mechanism against inflation. So prime's going to rise. That's going to be a little more expensive to be expected, given the inflationary pressures. But that hasn't been our constraint and still continues not to be our constraint. It's not a question of finance. It is a question of physically getting the arrays built. And now what we're seeing with Russia's invasion and war onto Ukraine, our suspicion and sense is that it's going to get less good for the supply chain. It's really bad for the folks in Ukraine. And that effect will be felt here domestically. Uncertainty is a wholly different animal without a associated coefficient that we can say, okay, this is what we think the rate's going to be, or we can do this to hedge. So that's really what preventing us from every other solar contractor. But none of us have experienced this before. So now we've got a tailing pandemic and layer of war on, and people are doing absolutely the best they can. But short of sitting on stockpiles, which is extremely capital intense of product and material.
Do you think at the same time the supply chain is going to be further constricted, that there's going to be more of a federal push for homegrown renewable energy?
I think thinking through it from a push perspective and from a result perspective are going to be two different lenses. The push perspective, sure, onshoring would reduce the module supply component of the supply chain. Of course, we have to look at steel, for racking, inverters, balance of system, and plant operations. So while modules are one part of it, steel price has tripled during the pandemic. So it's sort of that expanding hydraulic tension model where you fix the problem here and then it shifts to another area. Even if we did, let's say we do manufacture modules at home, where does the silicon come from to as a raw material to go into those modules? And so there's still going to be a rate limiting factor, even as you sort of backward integrate into the supply chain. And as SPW has reported on before, a lot of the silicon comes from China. But there are some really cool companies. And you guys actually did, I think it was like September last year, Crossroads Solar.
Yeah, so Kelly reported on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really, I love their saying. It's something like perfect panels made by people who made mistakes or something like that.
Yes, incredible.
More innovation, more thinking about, because we do have to be competitive. Just like anything, it's likely that it was manufactured abroad. And so every industry is facing the same thing we are. And so it's not just us.
Yeah. On the more positive side,
on the positive note,
what are some future product trends you're looking forward to?
We've got a few here that we think folks that are sort of opportunities that we see, and maybe the folks over at Crossroads can get on this. But cell to cell recycling, the mechanism doesn't exist now, but as our industry matures, other industries have matured mechanisms to recover steel and aluminum present on our sites. Great, so that's taken care of. But the forward-looking technology adoption to really disintegrate and disassemble and recycle silicon from cells, and a mechanism to regenerate efficiency, and then make those same panels, make other silicon products, like all the chips in your iPhone or the computers that we're using. It's all starts the same. It's sand. And so having that recoverable asset really is something that we're looking forward to. It's going to take a while to figure out how to delaminate the cells and pull back the metals and materials. Something else that we're keeping an eye on and thinking about is it's less of a product and more of a use pattern. So dual use, getting back that idea of being a pioneer, at least in our area of with the agrivoltaics. What other mechanisms? Because I think right now it's seen as a binary choice. It's either solar or something else, or it is solar and I think we are moving to solar and agriculture, solar and grazing. A few of our arrays have sheep that graze, not goats. Do not use goats.
I've heard
justice on that one.
Yeah. They're jumpers.
Oh, totally. And the sheep bump into the racking, they just bounce right off. It's no big deal.
It's a great visual.
Fluffy. Yeah, right. So definitely sheep on that. And that's a solar it's not taking and solar really actually preserves the land if you think about it, because we pull everything back out 30 years down the road and you've got a gorgeous green piece of land there that usually we clean up as a brownfield in some cases. So it's solar and something else. That's the way we're thinking of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, those were all of my questions. So thank you so much, Scott, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kelsey. I really enjoyed being on the show and looking forward to reading more of your guys' publications in the future and learning.